check on the mics there.
Hey, oh, ha, ha, ho.
Hello. I'm kind of a soft talker. Just
That sounds good.
I'll try to be up in here, but
Crank up the gain.
how about here? Can I sit back? Or I
Yeah,
gotta be
man.
on it.
And we're live.
You can sit back, just pull the mic towards you a little bit. Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah,
I'm
there we
having
go.
a good time.
There we go.
Dude, I'm having a good time.
Exactly.
Dude, this is new. This is new. Like, you got really lucky to come in here on a day when we are, like,
Yeah.
trying out something that might be a colossal failure, but also
brand new, yeah.
it's brand new,
No,
and it's
I
possibly...
I can feel the energy of everything before this all happened, and I'm fucking pumped.
It's exciting, dude. I'm, like, thrilled.
Yeah.
Welcome to episode 74. It's 74, right, Gordo?
Indeed it is.
It's episode 74 of the motherfucking podcast. This is, of course, the official podcast of the International Power Rock Combo, motherfucking Ruckus, from Denver and Chicago, respectively. The world's greatest opening band and the world's lowest budget media empire. Welcome to the show. This is the first time we've done a live stream on YouTube Live. So, hello. Hi to everybody out there watching on YouTube. This is fucking exciting, man. We got Wiggins here from YOLO Rum is running our live stream today. Of course, we've got Gordo in the booth. Say hi, Gordo.
Hello.
And our guest today is a good buddy of mine, and man, it seems like every week I've got to like ask someone how to pronounce their last name, but a good friend of mine.
At least you ask.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The I was corrected. This is not the heavy metal audiologist. This is the heavy metal instrument specialist because he's not a doctor. But please welcome my buddy Gianni to the show. How do you pronounce your last name?
Thank you. It's DiGiacomo.
DiGiacomo.
Yeah, or Gianni DiGiacomo, if you want to be.
I think DiGiacomo sounds way cooler.
That's how we all say it, our families.
Hey, DiGiacomo!
It's just like last week when you had Ruben on. He was like, "Well, you can say it this way, but we're in America."
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it's DiGiacomo.
He's like. What did he say? He was like, "It's Patino, but you guys don't
Yeah.
have Enya's here,"
Exactly. So
which is not true because I have everything Enya ever put out. But
Oh, that's the Zoom lot.
the Zoom lout, exactly. So you decided you didn't want to do any ice cream for this episode.
yeah, man. Oh yeah. You texted me for confirmation, and I was like, "Hey, just so you know, I'm not taking a trip to outer space with any ice cream."
Why
tonight."
not? Why not? Karen wouldn't do it either.
Dude, edibles or
All you need to do is listen to Ruben's episode
Yeah.
to know what to expect from that.
Say no to drugs, kids. For those of you who are watching on YouTube and are not longtime subscribers of the podcast, which you should be, by the way, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you know when we do this again. If this all goes well and Wiggins doesn't run screaming out of the building, we're going to make a habit out of this. So we had Ruben Patino from Los Percheros, and he was in Reno Divorce, and now he's in Egoista with Karen Kuda, who they just had their first show with Strung Out in the Casualties this last night, I think. And I heard
And I got to shout out No Takers as well.
No Takers.
Yeah.
Oh, he was in No Takers?
No,
as
no,
well?
no. The other, that was other. It was a 4-bill band.
Oh, No Takers. Were they the opener, or were
They
they
were
the...
like second support, whatever the not first band is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Those are buddies that I've been in bands and some other stuff.
did you go to the show?
No. But they're my buddies, so I saw them posting all the stuff. They're at the show.
Karen's like, are you coming to the show? I'm like, no, I'm a dad. I get out to do my own stuff, and
Dude,
that's
dad
it.
card. That's the
dad
I pull
card.
that shit constantly.
Dude,
I'm
I
like,
love the
did you know
dad.
kids? My kid just turned 18 yesterday, so I'm like, I have an adult now.
Your kid is 18?
18 years old,
Really?
man. Yeah.
Wow. That's insane. Yeah, I was a buddy of mine invited me to a show, and I was just like, my whole excuse was just like, sorry, can't do it, dad stuff. That's it.
It's completely validated too.
Like,
people don't even question it. They're like, oh, cool, I get it.
Even if my wife is like, you can go do whatever you want. I'm like, no. Dad card. You got an 18-year-old.
Yeah,
That's great. Dude,
Aaliyah, and we just celebrated her birthday yesterday. Yeah, she's 18.
I thought, like, first of all, when I found out that I was going to be a dad and you were sending me congratulations, and you're like, welcome to the club.
Yeah.
In my brain, I was going, I didn't even know that he had a kid. But you have an adult. You have a full-on adult.
Yeah.
But yeah, so to catch people up, if you didn't happen to catch episode 72, with Ruben Patino, I gave him a very, very strong cannabis ice cream before the episode. And it's like whole first part. Now, did you listen to the whole episode?
I'm about 40 minutes into it. So he's talking about Peru, where I'm at right now.
Okay.
Oh, he's right at the sweet spot.
So you're at the sweet spot of the show.
Even that has got me like hanging. I mean, like literally, I was telling you when I came in, I was like, I've been listening to the show, and usually it's when I'm driving.
Right.
And I don't have a very big commute right now, so it's kind of like I'm breaking it up in little pieces,
Right.
as there's a lot of content to go through. But I imagine that.
No, it was a great episode, but you were definitely in the sweet spot because after the break, he comes back in and he's not nearly as animated. He's like nearly comatose. And I feel bad because I really wanted to promote the hell out of the guy, but the whole second part of the episode is just him high.
Man. I'm gonna totally like feel empathy for him because every time that I've done edibles, I mean, it's every now and then when I had done them, I'll be like, oh, I'm okay. It's not that bad. But there is more often than I have fucking freaked out and been like so stressed and like been like shaking in a bed kind of stuff.
It's a rocky road.
Actually, I think Rocky Road is one of the types of ice cream that we have.
Was that the literal flavor?
I think we have chocolate. I think we have Rocky Road, and I think we have like vanilla bean crunch or something like that. Like we have multiple flavors. Like this sweet little old lady from Georgia made Granny's ice creams. Man, they're so good.
That is awesome. I mean, I love the whole concept of it. I mean,
well, you've got to build up your tolerance for one. And number two, I had some edibles on our last episode, and I can't. Gordo, what's the name on that package up there on the speaker? What's the name of the company? What is it?
Midnight.
Midnight. Oh, Midnight might be the name of the actual product, but they have a whole line of products. Whatever this company is, whatever this brand is, where I did some of their stuff.
1906.
1906
New Heights.
Okay, so 1906 edibles. They gave us a bunch of stuff because here at the Nug Nation, we work with a bunch of different cannabis brands and things like that. So
everybody out there, dark chocolate for sleep.
Yeah,
Midnight.
oh, awesome.
I'm actually probably going to take some of those.
Is it the strain Midnight?
I don't think it's the strain. I think
the
they
strain
have
Midnight, dude, is like
knock you on your ass.
Totally puts you to bed. Yeah.
I think the strain thing's bullshit.
Yeah.
Do
you?
Yeah, I think the strain thing's bullshit.
You know, you get different variations of it.
That's what, man, who was telling me this last time I was here? Somebody
we were talking
from
about that.
Nug Nation was telling me about Delta 8s and 9s.
What are Delta 8s and 9s?
Well, you have to read about it on Leaflet.
Well, I mean, I just think that because plants are so dynamic, because they change so much, and I'm sure there's some weed head in the comments, some, horticultural, probably Joey is actually in the comments going, no, you're wrong, it's bullshit. But I feel like plants are so dynamic and their properties can change so much that like the way that we have like tried to put strands into different boxes, I don't know if you can really do that with any degree of accuracy.
Yeah, that's what it's never consistent. I noticed that we would like be on a strain for months and months and months, all of a sudden one pop up and be like, it's not the same.
Right.
It's totally different. You think like if you harvest a whole bunch of it, that big harvest is going to be one way, but then
right. It's gonna. I mean, you would think. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not
I have no idea.
I don't know.
Right.
But
You never know. That Chocolope could be different the next time around.
It could be. Chocolope is the strain, the only strain that you trust, correct?
For the most part, but actually my bandmates, OG Lime Cookie and Grapefruit Romulan.
Grapefruit. That is made up. You're making up names.
It is not. That's Terry's favorite strain, and I've had both of those.
Banana cream tricycle. It really does a number on me.
Banana cream tricycle.
No, I don't know. Like, but with these 1906 edibles, and I swear to God they didn't pay me to do a plug or anything, but with these 1906 edibles, they are 50-50 THC and CBD.
Yeah.
So what I think a lot of the trouble that people are having with edibles and with pot in general is they have been bred specifically to be really, really high in THC and almost nothing in terms of CBD.
Right.
And so you get these people that are like people who are more prone to psychosis and schizophrenia are actually experiencing THC. I mean, I've heard, the sources may not be reliable, but I've heard that that it creates this like THC psychosis because you don't have the CBD leveling it out. And these are 50-50, so you get you get the high from the THC, but then the CBD is like coming in and like cooling it out.
Yeah.
I had a little CBD avocado oil before I left the house, and I'm feeling pretty all right.
Yeah, I haven't done it in a while, like a really long time, but like CBD.
See, I think you should just take one of those at the break. I think it won't be like Reuben on the ice cream.
Yeah.
Edibles aren't that scary. You just need to build up your tolerance. So, hey, I want to give a shout out to my man Gordo in the booth there real quick.
Hi.
I'm really glad that you're here, buddy, to share this. This is super exciting.
Yeah, it's cool,
to
man.
be able to do this. I hope we can do
it
a lot going forward. You got to go see Greta talk, right?
Wow.
Yes.
How was that?
Greta Thunberg.
How was the Greta Thunberg talk?
It was very brief. It was on par with a lot of other things that I've seen from her. It was really good, but I was really more struck by the youth from our own community here.
Right.
It was really amazing. Like lots of indigenous
crabs.
Indigenous crabs, yeah. Lots of indigenous youth and LGBTQ youth. Like a lot of them, not a lot of them were super comfortable, on a mic, and much less in front of that many people.
Right.
It was a huge crowd.
It looked like a huge crowd.
Yeah, and they did a great job, man. It was super. It was inspiring. It was really inspiring.
So it was a bunch of different speakers, but the one thing that they had in common is they were all young people. Is that what it was?
The vast majority of them, yeah.
And
they were young organizers and protesters, and
it was a climate protest, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing, and I have this like sort of optimistic nihilism, where like I see our place in the universe as being very small and insignificant, but I also have this like faith in humanity. The ecological consciousness movement, whatever you want to call it, has only really existed about 50 or 60 years. And just the progress that we have been able to make from like turning from the damage that we did since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, just the amount, like what we've been able to do, turning things around, we're really close to eradicating, the like big 4 or 5 communicable diseases on the planet, and we're getting really close to eradicating some of the damage that we're doing to the ocean and just to the planet in general, and just being able to like seeing that level of consciousness and activism to me is indicative of greater things to come. Like I know the tone and the narrative is a lot of like, we got to do something or we're all going to die, but I see action happening as a result. And to me it's really inspiring.
I think the best thing that can happen is that you can just draw more people in,
to the conversation.
Yeah, draw more people in and to the conversation, and just, create more awareness.
Even if the conversation is an argument, like I think that the fact that there is heated discourse going on globally across all subjects, that affect us as a species is, I find it very encouraging. I know there's a lot of people who are kind of, there's a bit of a fixation on doomsday scenarios right now, and I don't know if that's, I don't know if that's the reality of how things are really going down. I see a lot of moves in the right direction personally.
And I kind of subscribe to the belief that the planet's going to be okay. Humans aren't.
Right. Right. If we don't do something about it. Right.
Yeah, it's always on my mind. I mean, the more that this kind of conversation has been kind of spinning around and all that stuff, like even just when I'm recycling and I'm throwing stuff away, when we're purchasing stuff at the house, all those different things like that, you're just kind of, it's really in the peripheral right now for me. I'm always thinking about it, whatever version of it that it may be. But it's always kind of on your mind, always on the tip of your tongue. It's like, and it's kind of crazy that there's people reaching out that are actually denying it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that there's not
Yeah, this is one of the only places on Earth where it's actually a debate.
I feel like they're just
that's what's it's insane to me. I mean, it's like people really are believing that like we can just dump all this shit in the ocean and like nothing's ever gonna happen.
They're just a very loud minority though.
It's crazy.
Like
it bothers me a lot, but
I sent you over that Atlantic article about the survey on political correctness, and I think that those numbers can apply across multiple strata. Like, I think that there are a very small number of people who are just like truly beyond help ignorant, a very small amount, and then there are a small amount of people, like 2 to 5% of the population on either side, that are devoted to activism at the extremes. And I think that 80%, give or take, are people who are kind of in the middle going like, okay, yes, we agree. We need to start being more mindful of this. We're just sick of the intensity and the vitriol in the discourse. You know what I mean? But you need that to you need those noisy people to draw attention to the discussion.
You need the polls to kind of,
right,
to meet out where everything is falling in the middle. But it's like, I don't know, man. I think that the numbers just don't. I mean, like, human thought is just kind of more nuanced. It's
right.
like
in general.
And I just think that I don't really trust anybody that doesn't change their opinion, over
right.
time. So you can be thinking one way and you can be convinced of something else, and you can have a conversation, and there can be nuance to a
discomfort is scary.
Argument.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, my daughter has very public with it, or not public with it, but very worked out by it in different ways, and it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, it's like that's a really great point when you say my opinion has changed from a lot of things through the course of my life. I'm 35 years old.
My opinions have changed on many things this week.
Seriously, yeah, that's one of those things where it's like, look, I'm never right, and I'm always learning, and I'm always gonna. That's just how I feel. I kind of try to live my life that way, where there should not be a reason that you're like, okay, it's just been this way and it's always going to be this way, and if not, you're wrong. That should not be the discourse.
So I have probably mentioned this Kierkegaard quote a few times on the show, but Kierkegaard says this thing about when staring into the abyss, one should expect to feel a certain amount of dizziness, and I think that there is a fear surrounding that dizziness. There's a fear surrounding confusion, when confusion is a sign of learning. Like, if you were confused about a subject, I listen to podcasts by intellectual public figures where I am almost always out of my depth. And I started feeling stupid because I was like, man, I can retain so little of this. I get the general point. It guides my behavior and it helps me in certain ways. But if I were to go and try and repeat to you something I listened to in this lecture, I wouldn't even be able to get 20% of the points that even the ones that impacted me the most.
Yeah.
And that is a very jarring mental state to be in. And I think that folks generally have a discomfort with that sort of tumult in their cognition. Where do you know anything about the stages of learning?
No, I don't know. To categorize them, no.
So
sure I'll be familiarized when you say them.
So if you were to divide learning into 4 categories, there's unconscious incompetence, which is you don't know what you don't know, and then there is conscious incompetence, which is you become aware of the things that you don't know, and then there's conscious competence, which is this area of like if you think about it, like learning to drive a stick shift. It's like driving the stick shift, but having to think about every gear, having to think about your mirrors, having to think about watching out for the person next to you. Like when you're learning to drive, you're having to consciously think of every move that you're doing. And then there's unconscious competence, which is where you have an understanding of something without knowing that you have an understanding of it. So it's like driving. Eventually, if you have gotten any good at it, you are able to do it and adjust the radio and do your makeup or comb your beautiful, long, luxurious hair, or whatever it might be. So I think, and I learned it at one point that most people, and you'll only be able to see this on the video version, but most people are kind of going through their lives generally crossing and changing direction between what they know and don't know over the course of their life. Maybe the frequency wavelength gets a little smaller over time, and eventually they get a little better at learning by the end of their life, and then they die. But if you're able to kind of maintain that dynamic equilibrium of staying in the state of confusion and state of learning and state of letting it be okay that you don't completely understand something, and that dizziness of staring into the abyss, if you're able to maintain that, I think that that's a good sign that you are constantly learning and you're constantly evolving and you're constantly getting better because you're maintaining that,
Unconscious incompetence really describes my musical career.
I know. I was like, that sounds almost offensive, but I'm with you. I get what you're saying. Yeah, no, that's great. I really like that explanation of that. That's
well. I also think that there are negative connotations associated with the term incompetent and ignorant.
That's such ignorant and incompetent.
But I am ignorant and incompetent in so many things.
I've been called worse, and I'm going to be called worse, and I'm, I don't like to.
Right.
It's just what happens.
Like when we started doing this podcast, we were especially incompetent as to how to do a podcast.
Of course.
And now we're on our 74th episode, and we've gone from a broken iPhone in the middle of Tony's, den to a 2-camera, live stream, and we've got Gordo producing, and we're starting to get, regular guests on the show, and we're by no means the best thing out there, and we're by no means the best at it. But the more and more we do it, the more we move towards that area of unconscious competence. There are certain things that we have done during this show about which we are unconsciously competent. There's things we don't have to think about doing week after week.
Gonna eat your brains and gain your knowledge.
So, now that we've gone off on that tangent a little bit,
love it.
Let's talk a little bit about what you do, man, and what brought you to wanting to take care of people's ears. Like what? Because, okay, we know each other just from the music scene.
Rock and roll.
Yeah, we just know each other from playing shows.
Bars, shows.
Probably the band that you played in with the most notoriety is Dead Temple, but who else have you played for people who don't know?
I guess my first like high school band was a band that was hopefully I'm talking loud enough.
No, you're fine.
Okay. The first high school band I was in was what were we called? Atronian Dirge, black metal band.
You were in Atronian Dirge?
Right. And this is when I start telling people my what bands I've been in, people are always like, what? And like,
I didn't know you were in Atronian Dirge.
Yeah, dude. Duh. No, just kidding.
That's great, man.
So that was like my high school band. And I only played out with them a few times. I got kicked out like at some point. But that band went on to be a really cool band called Flight of Sleipnir.
Okay.
So a lot of those guys are doing that stuff, and then also there was a band that was called, oh man, it's so hard to keep all of them. Stoic Destination. So like that, all those guys kind of branched out into that black metal stuff. That was my high school band. So then after that, I got into a band called Elucidarius, and that was with Grant, Israel, Cole Rudy, who's in Dragon Deer now, and then
no way.
And they became Katesh.
Okay.
There's another one where I was in that band kind of early on, and then it kind of like fizzled out and then stuff.
So it sounds like bands get more successful after you leave. Is that
right? I know. I'm like, oh my goodness, yeah. So, right? Am I the fucking? I was playing bass in those bands, and like,
listen, if something happens more than once, it's probably a pattern.
Yeah. So I basically gave up with music at that point, and then just kidding.
so I was like, well, how can I get money from these people that are that won't let me play in their bands anymore?
Yeah, so then I started doing some more punk rock, hardcore stuff with the guys that were, when we were talking about the last night, the Gothic show, the No Takers.
Right.
So those guys, I was in a band with all of them together. And I was actually in the first kind of formation of that band, but I didn't actually stick in the band. They were called Outnumbered. It's kind of funny. No Takers, Outnumbered, right? But anyway, hardcore band, and I was in them for a while. And then after that, I did Battle Spawn, and I did like a negative. Remember that band?
I thought you said Bowel Spawn.
No.
And then I went Battle Spawn. Yeah. I knew the name of the band.
Yeah, Battle Spawn and Dead Temple played some shows together. I was in two bands at once, and so those bands were about the same time. And then after Dead Temple was Voidbringer. That was the one I'd run into you at RocketSpace.
Right.
And then now I'm in a new.
Are you not doing Voidbringer anymore?
Voidbringer's done, and then we just kind of. Just, it happens. Bands just fall apart.
They fizzle out, yeah.
And so that one did. We didn't do that band really was. I don't want to talk shit about them or anything, but we didn't do a lot. It was kind of one of the least active bands. But Dead Temple was probably the most active band.
It's hard to keep a band together, man.
Yeah, definitely. And then so now I've got a new band, and it's a black metal band.
What's your new band right now?
Necrosophic Abyss is the name of it.
Necrosophic Abyss.
And
do you have a spaghetti logo?
We're planning on it. We're kind of in we are about 9 months in, maybe not that long, like 6 months. But that's funny you say that because you like your eyes open and stuff. My girlfriend's always like, she's like, "What's the name of your band?" And I'm like, "Necrosophic Abyss," and she's like, "Dark and ominous words." So, yeah, it's fucking cool. It's actually. A lot of times you join bands.
But is it true Norwegian black metal?
I mean, we're from fucking Denver, so no.
Yeah.
We're from Denver, bud. We just do like.
but I mean, is that what you guys are going for? Is like true black metal, like desolate and
there's 3
ominous and dark.
Yeah, it's evil. It's we're kind of what we're looking at is kind of the process of mourning and like funerals and stuff like that.
Cool.
Which is like it's really great. It's really powerful. It's very doomy too. So it's kind of like mixing a lot of the stuff that I'm really into, which is like doom and black metal, which is a genre called funeral doom. But we're not slow because funeral doom is kind of one of those slow,
really
gloomy,
droney, really slow,
but like black and evil. So we're really, really fast. We have these elements of doom in it as well, and it's come together way better than I could have ever imagined. Honestly, it's like a really exciting project, and it's just it's.
How long have you been doing it for?
I was just thinking. I think we started in. So it's funny how you say. So we were talking about like my line of bands and like my local bands I've been in, really showing myself off. But know, right when Voidbringer was starting to kind of go into like a hiatus point, like one of my friends reached out to me and was like, "Hey, do you want to start this black metal band?" And I was like, "I don't know if I got time, And I think that was back in, it must have been last March, I think. So we're getting close to probably like 7 months or something like that.
Cool.
And so they reached out to me like, "Hey, I don't know if you have time, whatever." And I was like, "Okay." And then the members in the band, I was like, "Okay, yeah, I'll meet up with you guys." So we did a couple rehearsals, and then it's been going since. The one thing, the band is exciting. I really can't wait to start doing it. But the one thing that, we're kind of talking about before we get out and start playing and promoting is that we're not going to start like name dropping members before we get out. So I'm in a band.
What do you mean?
Like, we just don't want to say like, "Oh, I'm in blah, blah, blah's band." And people are like, "Oh, I love this band." So they associate it with because there is some big hitters, like that's a funny thing to say, so dumb to say that.
Like who? Come on, drop some names, man. We're trying to get some more subscribers on the show. Drop some names.
They don't want me to just name drop.
They don't want to name drop until it comes out?
We made a discussion really not to name drop. Just because, like, I think...
Okay, so let's put this in perspective. If I joined a band with someone, I wouldn't mind at all that they drop my name.
Right.
So they must be big enough that they have to have the discussion of they don't want their name dropped.
And that's kind of, it's not. It's not
because
like
Gordo, if somebody like wanted to drop your name in a band, you'd have been like, why, right? Like,
yeah.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, and that's kind of what I was. But someone asked, once someone,
in a word,
they kind of asked, like, "Hey, let's not just like, say, hey, we're X and X from X and X, and like check out our band because of our dicks, like whatever." Like,
right.
So, and I get that and appreciate that. And I think it is going to make it when we do finally get out and unveil the band. People will be like, "Oh shit, you're playing with them," and be like, "Holy fuck, that was really heavy and awesome." And and it's like it wasn't one of those things where like, "Dude, I'm in this band with these dudes," and like, it's gonna blow your mind, but it's like we kind of want to like have our first show really be impacting in that way, because it's one of those things where we know enough people where we're gonna be able to get we'll be able to get support on something relatively easily,
right?
But we don't want to use that as our like path into like getting us like into like a spot right away and just being like, hey, like we're blah blah, we're these guys from these other bands.
Kind of like what's his name, Marky Ramone, going on tour with no music whatsoever, and then, dude,
I don't know what this is, but that's hilarious,
dude.
Let me tell you a story.
Did you go to that show when we opened?
No, I didn't.
Or wait, which Richie Ramone? That's who it was.
Richie Ramone.
We opened for Richie Ramone, who was the drummer of the Ramones and he actually wrote Somebody Put Something in My Drink.
Mm-hmm.
So he was that era of the Ramones, right? And so we get offered this gig with Richie Ramone, and it was sight unseen because he had no content up. He didn't have an album. He didn't have any videos. He didn't have anything. He just had the name. And
he's Richie.
And we played.
Richie?
We played with Richie. That was the thing. I was like,
yeah,
I'm sure a lot of people are doing
I've seen that shirt, so I didn't see Richie in there.
There's Frankie Ramone, there's Bosco Ramone,
Tommy,
there's Gianni Ramone. There's Jose Ramone. There's Jagdish Ramone.
Aaron Ramone. There's Tony
Gordo
Ramone.
There's Wiggins Ramone. There's Mikey Ramone. There's Headphones Ramone, Cup Ramone, Chair Ramone. Anyway.
Billy Ray Ramone.
Billy Ray Ramone. Stevie Ray Ramone. Ray Romano Ramone.
Dude, you're killing me. Jesus.
No, but and I always liked Somebody Put Something in My Drink. I liked the song.
Okay.
We got offered to do it at the Oriental. It was supposed to be this big thing. And we played with him. And I mean, he definitely had some players in his band. I will say that to their credit. So if any of the Richie Ramone guys are watching, not to dog on anybody in the band individually, they were all great players. Their crew was all really nice. We had a good time. That being said, the show wasn't very fucking good. It just
there's a lot of those,
and I heard about that across the whole tour. Like I'm very good friends with Andy Burkaw, who is one of the main owners and one of the main talent buyers over at the Oriental. This is before Peter Orr jumped in. Andy Burkaw plays bass for White Fudge, so he and I are good friends, and he put us on that show. And after the fact, he was pissed.
Oh, wow.
He was pissed because, one, it was a bad show. They weren't very good. They weren't a very good act. Individually, great musicians. Not a good act.
Right.
I think Richie was fucked up. I also, like a lot of people just kind of walked out. Like we played, and then Richie went on, and it started to people started to file out. It just wasn't very good. And then I found out later that was kind of something that was happening across the board, was that people were booking this show sight unseen and then getting the actual show and going, what the fuck did we, what did we sign up for here? So there are, to your point, there are bands that do that. They just go here's the names.
Right.
Before going here's the music, here's the product that we're doing. And by the way, it just also so happens that so-and-so and so-and-so are in the band.
Exactly. You can't sell the package without the actual music.
Right.
That happens. Though.
So you guys don't want to put the cart before the horse. You want to make sure.
The thing with, black metal, too, is it's one of those things where you don't want it to be like that, I guess. And it means to be a little more serious than just hey, we want to bring people that are interested in black metal and dark satanic music and stuff like that, right. Not just hey, we'll bring all your girlfriends and the people that, a lot of the people that are really are not into it. They're just there to be a part.
You want it to be for true fans, true Norwegian black metal.
Dude, you've got a real good black metal voice.
That's good. So we're working on this new piece right now that it's more of a thrash song than anything, but the vocal I'm planning on doing for it is going to be more
fuck yeah, dude. That's cool.
I would love to come do some guest vocals.
Dude, yeah. Fuck some gang fucking vampire vocals, dude.
Only if I can sing about, a recipe for, pasta fagioli or something like that. Exactly. That's all that I wanted. Not that I would have to look up a recipe because it's not like I have a really good recipe for pasta fagioli.
I think that one's an easy one, right?
I have a good recipe for instant oatmeal, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, mostly what I wanted to do is I wanted to give people a little background so they know that you're not some guy who was in the medical world who was trying to hey, who needs this stuff is these kids in the damn rock and roll scene, and I'll go in and I'll brand myself as this You have always been in the heavy music world, hardcore, metal,
for sure.
punk rock.
Little kid,
And then your vocational training led you to going in this new direction that we're going to talk about. So,
correct.
Tell me about a bit about what you do now.
So currently, I am what is called a hearing instrument specialist or a hearing aid dispenser. Basically, it's a state license. So we were talking about audiologist,
and we're not talking about the hearing hearing aid dispenser. See, I need to fix my. I thought you.
We didn't actually test your hearing when you came in last time, so
we did. We did test my hearing when I came in last.
So half the time, because a lot of times I work with musicians, so a lot of times it's just preventative stuff. So
I kind of want to get my chart just so I can take it home and show it to my wife and be like, I promise you, I am not ignoring you. This is what my hearing test said.
Yes, I can't really. It's not very good thing for a provider to like talk about someone else's hearing loss, but you can share yours, of course.
Right.
But I do remember that I was like, oh shit.
Like it wasn't.
No, it's not bad.
It wasn't bad, but it was like on the way to being bad.
Yeah, correct.
It was the type of thing where you showed me the chart and you were like, okay, well, this is common damage that we see with musicians, with people, especially someone who's been doing it as long as you have. I'm surprised it's not worse.
Yeah, bar
right? Because I'd been at Three Kings for 5 years by that point. Mm-hmm. So you were what's called a hearing aid dispenser and hearing instrument specialist.
Yes, there's a couple different names for them, and it's just what it is. It's a state licensure. So an audiologist is a doctor. And doctors.
And you work with an audiologist, right?
I work with an audiologist currently. But when we had met at the clinic I was at, I was actually in my training kind of area. I was an apprentice at the time. So I worked at a hospital with like a lot of audiologists.
Right.
So that's where I got all my training.
Yeah, you were at Anschutz back then.
Correct.
I remember that.
Yeah. And so yeah, that's what I do. So my day-to-day is hearing tests and dispensing hearing aids. And then the cool part of it, the fun part of it for me, actually it's all pretty fun, but the part that like really that I love.
The most rewarding part.
The most rewarding part is one of them, because I actually do really like the people that come in and get hearing aids, and that's really great. But, the part that I share, within my own peers and stuff is doing preventative music plugs.
Right.
Custom. I'm like, I can't
custom musician plugs. Yeah.
Yeah. So musician plugs and then inner monitors as well, because what it does is, it's one of those things where it prevents hearing loss.
Right.
But then also it keeps me in touch with rock and roll people, and it keeps me in touch with like my metalhead friends and stuff, and it's also like it's a really cool thing to have that specialty ability to go and meet them and to kind of either talk about it or procure the hearing to keep them from hearing loss. And a lot of people have been like, look, dude, I play like in this fucking super heavy band, and like I've been wearing your plugs for 3 or 4 years, and like I can't imagine like what would have happened if I wasn't doing these.
If I hadn't been doing it, right?
So.
And I mean, and I'll admit that there are times when I'm like, I forgot my plugs, or I forgot, or we don't have enough time to sound check my monitors or whatever. Yep. But I use them whenever I possibly can.
And that's we had talked always when we talk about this from like anyone who works in like an audiologist or a hearing instrument specialist, it's always about time and exposure. That's the thing that we just always drill, So it's like really how long are you in the environment? How much time do you put into that environment? So if you're working in a mechanical...
And repeatedly, frequency and duration.
Exactly. So if you're sitting around at a steel mill all day and you're never wearing your, you forget it one day and you work 8 hours, that's different than walking into a rock and roll show for a 30-minute set. You know what I mean? So and those may be different levels of decibels, and it's always subjective. I mean, it's something where like people are kind of like, well, if I do this in the X, Y, and B, I'm okay. And it's like, I can never tell you when you're okay. I can only tell you when you're safe, when you're wearing something to protect you. Mm-hmm. But I can tell you that when you're exposed to these like maybe longer, short periods of time in noise environments, you may be at risk. And that's all we can say. So it's one of the things I think a lot of audiologists and a lot of hearing instrument specialists say this. It's kind of like sunscreen. Like you go outside and you're not
necessarily going to get skin cancer.
Yeah, you're not going to be done. You're not going to be done unless it's a very, very like in some kind of astronomical shit and the sun's a little bit closer. It burns you. That'd be like that doesn't.
It happens to be the day that you develop melanoma.
Exactly. Yeah. So and it's one of those things where it's like you just kind of got to be. It's good to have the protective elements there with you, and when you have them, that's good. And if you don't, like you're not going to.
Because it increases your odds to keep your hearing.
Yeah.
So when I went and saw you, let's talk a little bit about that process. Yeah. I saw you starting to put up flyers at RocketSpace.
Yeah.
Shout out to RocketSpace, one of our sponsors on this show. Love you, Kate. Love you, Kate, too. And Jason Bonham, not the Jason Bonham, but another Jason Bonham. Love everybody over there.
Yeah.
You were starting to put up ads and starting to put out earplugs.
Yeah.
I
started doing that like from the second that I was allowed to do that.
Right.
Now I like don't really associate myself with any clinic per se. Like I just
you have your own practice.
I don't have my own practice, but I just kind of like with the musician stuff. I'm like, look, like a lot of times it works better to go to a rehearsal, like to meet them. Where it's like a lot of times the rock and roll hours are different than like business hours.
So are you making your full living from this practice?
Oh no.
Okay.
No. So I work at a different practice, which I won't really talk about too much because I don't want to.
Right.
But what I do kind of as what we consider like your side hustle or kind of the thing that you do on the side or whatever is, I do musician stuff on I'll go to people's band practices or their houses or they'll come to me, whatever it is. Because that way it just makes it a little less informal.
It's been growing too. I mean, I've watched it grow over the last few years.
It's not quite as we can notice you have to go. You came to the hospital once, so you have like a different experience than the people that I've seen in the last couple year or so.
Right.
Where it's like you got to like go like park, and then you got to like go up an elevator bank to get to the 6th floor, and you got to like go check into a desk, and I'm like, hey man, and you're like, hey dude, and you're like already like all over it. You know what I mean? Like, but you get there.
But so now you like work in a place where like people can just walk in the door and they get right to you. Or you come to them.
I go to them for the most part, yeah.
Right.
Just because of that. It's just kind of the way it works a little bit better, because otherwise it gives you people kind of a reason not to come in. I think, because a lot of people are like, I just want music plugs. I don't want a hearing test.
Right.
People say that all the time. And I'm like, I totally feel you. You know what I mean? Like a hearing test is like hey man, here's your diagnosis. Here is your written and signed.
See, I wanted to know.
You did. And no, I mean, like I would say it's 50-50. Some people like really want to know, and some people are like stressed, dude. They're just like,
I wouldn't mind knowing how bad my hearing loss is.
Yeah, I'll set you up, man. I mean,
well, it's genetic in my family too. Like hearing loss is genetic in my family. Like my dad told me this story. He actually got chewed out by a guy in Germany for talking too loud. Because my dad was at a restaurant in Germany, and my dad, if you ever met my dad, he kind of talks like this.
I did meet your dad. I've met him.
You've met my dad, yeah.
I don't recall the loud
voice. My
voice,
dad talks like that because my mom has always been hard of hearing.
Gotcha.
My mom wears hearing aids.
Mm-hmm.
My grandfather wore hearing aids. Like if I didn't do the damage to my ears that I do, it's very likely that I would have, experienced some sort of hearing loss regardless. But like my dad, this guy came up and goes, "Will you shut up? I can hear you through the whole restaurant." And it's just
because Germans have a different type of what is that?
Manners is what it's called.
Yeah, manners. Yeah, that's kind of like the thing that every country talks about how loud Americans are.
They got the what you call it, etiquette, etiquette, whatever. No, they told us when we were over in Europe, they were like, you guys stick out like a sore thumb. And I was like, why? And Jan, who we've had on the show, our buddy from Belgium, he's like, you walk around like you won the war. He's like, you just walk around with your chest sticking out, all bow-legged. And then we went to Amsterdam, and we were talking about going to red light, and this girl is like, well, be careful because there's pickpockets and and her boyfriend goes, oh no, they'll be fine. They're Americans. And they walk around, they look like Americans, they stick out like a sore thumb. No one will mess with them. And I'm like, why do people keep saying that? And they're like, well, just, Americans walk different.
The bow-legged thing is
because
hilarious.
Your culture is asshole.
Just like, you all walk around like you're John Wayne, that was the point they were trying to make it. But because they're European, they're also supposed to be polite about insulting you.
Look, you're all a bunch of cocksuckers, and I don't really care that much about,
With respect,
though, yeah.
But, so I went and saw you because I was concerned about my hearing loss.
Yes.
And I had my friend Ross McAfee, who had his own, I think he still does.
Pro audio stuff.
Yeah, did his own pro audio stuff and told me he could get me a deal on in-ear monitors. Mm-hmm. And so I was starting to look into that more because I was, basically what would happen is I would go and do a show. And as the show's going on, Tony and Parker and Logan are turning up louder and louder. Ty refuses to mute his drums at all. So anytime I'm playing with Ruckus, it's just getting blasted the whole time.
Oh, yeah.
And what I would find is, I don't know if it was from like fatigue or just from them turning up, but by the end of the show, I would lose my monitor, wouldn't be able to hear myself, and just spend the next day with just tinnitus just like killing me. You know what I mean? Like it was fucking me up. So I've been looking into it for a long time. And, heard that you had been doing this thing, and came in to see you, and we sat down and we did a hearing test.
Yep.
And you made some custom molds for me. Correct. And then we sent those off to Westone.
Yes, sir.
And then Westone made the musician plugs for me and made the in-ear monitors for me.
Yep.
And I've been using them ever since. And I can tell the difference when I don't use them.
Yeah, I think you kind of were. I had actually done a few monitors before them, but you were the first, like, my rock friend who came in and, like, did it, and I could actually kind of follow up with. Because there's not a lot of follow-up with this kind of thing.
Right. But if it's people you know from the scene, you can follow up.
Yeah, and so,
with them
I kind of
easier.
I was like, hey, and it was good that Ross was there. I didn't at that point know a lot about monitoring systems, and now I know a lot more about them. But at that time, I was kind of like, well, I don't even know what it is. Like, it's like you have to have a monitor. It's, what I do is basically a very, very well-fitting pair of earplugs. You know what I mean? And it depends on what's in it. Like, and they can be very expensive or be cost-effective kind of thing.
Right.
But you were the first person who was like, look, I'm not using my voice as much. Like, that's the biggest thing I noticed. Like, I don't have to try to compete with the sound of the stage or with the guitar
I'm
players.
able to do a lot more.
And you're like, my throat's not as bad now.
Well, and I'm able to, if I'm working now, the challenge that has changed is now, if I'm not if I'm working with a front of house engineer or monitor engineer who is not used to IEM systems, then I'm up in for trouble, because I have trouble getting them to give me what I need. Okay. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not getting enough juice, or I want effects in the ears or something like that. Like when we opened for Blue Oyster Cult, the engineer there knew what the fuck he was doing.
And it just depends on the venue.
And so he's like, do you want a little reverb? Do you want a little delay? Like, do you want these things to make it sound more natural? And like, I've talked to David Sanchez from Havoc, and I told him, I was like, I don't like being isolated from the crowd. And he gave me the suggestion of like taking a couple SM57s and putting them on top of the stage just for like vibe mics and adding that to our input list.
Super cool. Yeah,
and then you were telling me about
Active Ambience.
Active Ambience. Tell me about that. What's the Active Ambience feature they have now?
It's not really, I don't think it's too new, but it's something that I've been using, not myself, but I've been kind of finding with some people that I've hooked up with, where, I guess shout out Eric Brown from Swashbuckle. He's got a pair ordered, and they're coming in. So he's one of the first ones I'm using this type of technology.
Oh, Eric, Rainbow Dragon Eyes.
Correct.
Eric Brown.
Yeah. So it's kind of a mixture of the inner monitor, the custom inner monitor, but it's also got a vent in it, and that's something that is common within ear molds and hearing aids. But what it is it's like it's actually an attenuator, like the filter that you have on the music plug, where it kind of like shelves the sound down a little bit, so you can still hear that clarity. Like, it's all about the fidelity, how you can hear everything.
Right.
And what it does is you can actually have a filter that you can replace within the inner monitor itself. So you can actually open it up so that you can hear the stage and the crowd naturally through your own ear, as opposed to like I think that
just plugging your ear and only hearing the
and
monitor
that's what
feed.
Everyone, I mean, that's typically when people come in and they talk to me about it, they're like, hey, like, I've never used them before, I'm like interested in it. And I was like, well, look, here's the big thing. Like, I tell people, look, if you're gonna invest into this, I think it's a great idea, because it's gonna help you preserve hearing, and it also is gonna make you more professional. I'm not gonna say that it's like gonna change the talent of the band or anything, but it's one of those things where it's gonna make things a little bit easier for you. But you need to practice with a universal monitor. Like, you need to just have like these kind of monitors, or the ones that go in your ears, and see if you like inner monitoring in general. Right. Because that's kind of one of the challenges, because sometimes people will, they don't, you can get cheaper ones, but like they'll put them on and they'll be like, I don't know if I want monitors like this. I'm so used to wedge monitors. Like, people kind of have their preferences. Some people, like, they just want a wedge monitor. That's one. They want to hear all the stage. But then there's the people that do need that extra help. And so when you practice with them, you just, you kind of see what you want, and then once you've worn the normal, and when I say custom, or not custom, I say universal, that's basically anything that is...
It's basically just a headphone.
It's just a headphone, yeah. And it's but it goes in your monitoring system, and that way you can see if you like that monitoring, and then you can kind of upgrade from there. And
I made the mistake of trying out...
I know, you told me this, and I was like, dude, you learned so much, and fuck, I learned a lot from that. Because I was like, wow, I could have been someone to divulge that information to you, but you had to be my guinea pig that went out and did that, and I was like, oh shit, man. Like,
and I mean, that's playing in front of 10,000 people.
Jesus, I
So
know.
so the mistake that I made is I was so excited to use my new system. The first gig I had after getting them was City Park Jazz. And the thing that I don't think I was prepared for is I expected the monitors to go on, and it was going to be like listening to a recording of the show.
Right.
And that's not what it is.
That's a good perceptive to have. That's how they're like marketed to individuals. I mean,
and that's not what it is.
Yeah, it's not.
What it is it's taking the direct feed from the monitor
straight
into your head
with no outside sound.
Or no outside sound, no effects.
Nothing.
It's just like mixed the way it would be for on stage.
Yeah.
So everything sounded weird. And my voice sounded just really flat. And it sounded really like it just sounded very dry, I guess is actually the more accurate term. Mm-hmm. And so the experience that I've had, if I don't take the time for a good sound check to get them dialed in, the experience that I had was that of being really uncomfortable and really self-conscious. Yep. Now, since then, I have learned how to dial them in a little bit better. I've learned that I probably bump them up further than is recommended, but it's got to do less damage than playing on stage with no earplugs.
Yeah, I mean it's going to depend.
And I'm gonna have to start going and using vibe mics to get that ambient sound in. But for anyone who's thinking about doing this, I would say really take the time to do a sound check and get it dialed in to where it will still be enjoyable to do the show.
Yeah. There's great resources out there too. I mean,
like what? I would love to know that.
YouTube is really, you can get into a YouTube hole on this.
Like, what would I look up on YouTube if I was gonna?
I mean, just literally just type in custom in-ear monitors and just start seeing what's going on from there. And even just type in in-ear monitors and people do they'll do rig rundowns. They will literally
product review type of things.
It may be product review, but it may just be I can't think of it. I'll probably send it to you if I can find it. It's probably in my saved list because I started saving the ones I really like. And there'll be people that just literally show you their touring monitoring system, right, and what they use and what the drummer likes to use and what the singer likes to use and kind of these different aspects of it. And they give you kind of this look, hey, we're not promoting anything, we're not selling shit, we're just kind of, this is what we do for our monitoring system, and we started this way and we got to here.
Could you maybe, after this podcast, go onto the comments thread of this episode and drop in some links that you think might be, that would be really cool?
Because, there's great ones. There's ones that I would look at and be like, wow, that makes a lot of sense. And then obviously talk to any sound guy or myself, reach out to me, and I can give you some ideas of either who to talk to if you don't have someone. Locally, I know a lot of people. I know a lot of sound guys. But, there's a lot of just talented individuals even in our area that can kind of get you. I mean, Ross was good with you. I mean, he gave you a really good...
he was great, and he let me do a payment plan on the system because the systems are expensive.
That's the thing, yeah. So I mean, it's it's a pair of headphones into some type of monitor. It could be a rack monitor. It could be and if you get the personal worn ones like you have, which is a receiver and transmitter kit, where it's wireless, which is very cool. I mean, they're awesome because then you can literally be all over stage everywhere because that's the big thing. So the monitors sit right here, right? You can if you step out in between them, the two wedge monitors like this, you lose or you have a mix of them. And so a lot of times it's great for singers. It's probably the best thing for singers because they can go all over the place and have their mix be however it wants to be. And it just depends. There's a lot of great things for them, but they're kind of dangerous in the sense that you may have some buyer's remorse afterwards. So I try to as a person who sells
and
it's
a big investment.
It's a big investment. So the person who sells these things, I'm completely transparent with that. I think that's the most important thing about it is to be very transparent with those type of things and say, hey, I want to support you ever I can with this, and I want you to benefit from this, and I also want you to wear them. And I watch a band that's someone that I've done their monitoring system with. I'm like, fuck yeah, I'm not a part of the band, but I'm kind of like hey man, we shook hands. I've been in that dude's ears.
You know what? But that's something that there's a couple things that have been very cool, and one, and we've talked about this in a few other contexts on the show before, is it's awesome to see people that I know from the scene grow up and start doing other things kind of around the edges of the scene, big capital T, capital S scene, that are doing other things like Jeremiah Ludeman from No Bueno is doing all, AV for corporate events and stuff like that. But we hire him to come do the projection and the live video mixing for whenever we do a new motion comic or something like that. Yeah. You are doing this audio instrument specialist thing where you are helping people stay in the game longer. Yeah. Since I've been to see you, you've had Ben came to see you. Ben from Chemist came to see you.
Just to interject a minute, those were the first. So you were. So I want you to know that you're one of the people that I could cut my teeth with. So
that's really
very
great.
important. For me to kind of acknowledge that. Chemist was the first band that I've had all members come in and do this. And this is when I was learning and training. And they came in and they were very patient with me and they were very supportive of what I was doing. and they came in and like kind of were like, I was learning how to do it, and the audiologists that were working for were happy to kind of help me help them so that I could learn how to do it.
Right.
So there's a couple bands that like kind of cut my teeth with, and it's just funny. I was like, this is something that most people don't want to share, but I like drilled Aaron's fucking ear, dude. And like you were like all like, fuck, man. Like, it wasn't like I didn't do anything that was, anything permanent.
No, you didn't
damage.
puncture my eardrum.
No, I didn't do anything like that. But you were one of the
scraped it a little bit.
You were one of the first people I had seen like without another person kind of over my shoulder watching. And you have to do that. That's what it is, Like you have to like eventually like not be fucking tethered to whoever's training you. And so what I did is I pushed against your ear canal, which is a very bony, very thin area.
Right.
But Aaron's like, oh, dude, and I was like, what? And I'm like just shit, and also pissed myself at the same time. I was like, oh my god, did I just like puncture the eardrum of like my homie? You know what I mean? But like,
no, it just stung a little.
No,
bit.
Yeah, it wasn't. I mean, it definitely was not an injury, but it was.
It's just a sense. So basically, he had to go in and clean.
He stabbed your brain a little bit.
he poked my brain. Yeah. So when I went in there, he had to clean my gross, waxy old man ears out a little bit. And didn't we figure out that, like, you were like, do you use Q-tips? And I was like, yeah. And you go, yeah, Q-tips are kind of bad because they just kind of, like, shove the wax.
Dude, it's all depend. I mean, so as a provider, as a person who's, like, taking care of people's ears, it's like, dude, ENTs would always make this joke that I worked with neuro-otologists, and those people that I work with would be like, the only thing that you want to put in your ear is your elbow. Or they would say...
That's totally what I heard growing up, too. Or don't put anything smaller than your elbow in your ear.
Exactly. Or they'll say, like, if you can fit a piano in there, you can do something with that. Or they just always say something ridiculous like that, and you're like, what? But
like, you're never supposed to put anything in your ear.
You're never supposed to put anything in your ear, but also it's like, you didn't explain or teach me anything with that stupid fucking comment. But, like, so, anyway, so I would start, not saying, not to say that, but it's just one of those things where you're like, well, I have put a Q-tip in my ear and I didn't die. So it's like people then start to be like, okay, what does that statement mean, right? So with Q-tips, with sensitive Q-tips, is it's like some people's ears are big enough that you can put a Q-tip in your ear, clean it, and get it out without injuring yourself. It's your own body. You know what I mean? Like, people do worse shit. People smoke cigarettes. People do all this other shit. So like, a Q-tip's not the worst thing, but depending on the aperture, like the silicone part of your ear, like, it just depends. Like, a normal standard Q-tip may just scrape it all and put it into a little patty that goes deeper and deeper.
Which is kind of what I had. I had a little patty of earwax.
And you had a wax patty.
I had a wax patty. Yeah, I just had and it was probably like 35 years old of just like, and so wild. He had to go in there with this like plastic scraper and go in and pull it out, and he pulled out this giant chunk, and he's like, you might be able to hear better just because of having that removed. Because this is probably 20 years of earwax in your fucking head.
Okay, so I have to ask then, what's your opinion on ear candles?
They don't. There's actually, I'll put a video of that in our YouTube comment section for.
Because I saw a friend of mine today was asking for an ear candle.
Yeah, there's a guy who did a very subjective study. It's not like a real intense one. It's about like a 15, 20-minute video. His name's Dr. Cliff Olson. He's just kind of like a YouTube audiologist. He's really great videos, but he did it. He took a patient and sat there and put a ear candle in there and measured, like what it did and like, what it is. The long story short, I mean, spoiler alert, like, it doesn't fucking do anything really, but like the problem is that a flame with a cone that's this big could never produce enough suction to fucking suck dust up. You know what I mean? It's like, it's it doesn't pull any suction. And so there's a few ways to clean ears.
It's just a big demonstrative ritual.
So the stuff that comes up when you do that, then
it's beeswax. I mean, it's made out of beeswax. I mean,
it's just beeswax. Then it's not anything that actually that originates from your ear.
It's just all
not
that
a patty.
It's like that scene in Man on the Moon where Andy Kaufman goes to like Indonesia or something like that to see the healer, and the guy like has the condom full of like fake blood, like pig's blood or something like that, and he's like pretending to reach into somebody's belly, and he's just breaking open the condom of fake blood. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where it's just a ritual. It's like a little magic trick to like trick you into thinking that's. I had a girlfriend who did a ear candle on me once, and she's like, "It's amazing."
I feel like so I will say though, from not like a medical standpoint, but it does have like a meditation kind of aspect to it. But that's about it.
Yeah, I've done it a lot. My family's a big believer in ear candles, and they did that a lot.
It's funny.
Did they?
Yeah.
I think it's
here's what I'll also explain it. And it says like people are still not gonna believe what the fuck I say. They're gonna be like, "Fuck you, dude! I still use ear candles, you idiot." And, be like, but like there's like
I don't know if that's wise.
Yeah, but so there's like
somebody's in the comments right now like, bullshit! My family created it.
Yeah, exactly. So you want to be careful with it because you don't want to make people, because they're expensive, dude. People will be like, they're like $8 each and $5, so they're kind of expensive if you're doing it a bunch. So it's hard to tell people that they have financially invested thousands of dollars over their lifetime and it doesn't do anything. But
and if you buy like 200 ear candles, you could have bought some in-ear monitors. So that's just something to think of.
I just think they work better on your nose.
That's hilarious. So there's these things. So there's a few different ways that like an ear, nose, and throat doctor, and they're the ones that really do a lot of the wax, like really bad wax removal stuff. There is a thing that they use, and it's literally a vacuum. It's like a suction vacuum. That's the same thing that I feel like it's the same horsepower or like the same kind of device that like when you put like the thing in your mouth that's constantly sucking the spit out when you're at a dentist.
Yeah.
It's like that powerful. It's just like constantly sucking. Like it's just this little tiny procedure vacuum. And that thing has a fucking hard time pulling wax out, dude. And it's like...
It's sticky, thick.
It's like... it's like fucking a vacuum going on in your head.
Have you ever tried to clear resin out of a pipe?
Dude, exactly.
It takes for fucking ever.
Yeah,
dude.
so the one thing, there's over-counter stuff that works. I mean, there's like drops you could put in your ear that dissolves it. So that's kind of what, and people do need help with that. That's what I would say.
And you sent me home with some drops at the end of the day. But what happened, and it was kind of the scary moment, is he's like cleaning out the wax patty. And he just, he went in a little too far.
I just hit the canal.
And it just hurt for a second.
Yeah.
And I went, like that. And, he got worried, but everything was fine.
I was like, I'm going to jail.
But
they're going to call the fucking cops.
Everything was fine.
Just because, it's just that point of, it's that, what was that, the Kierkegaard thing you said?
Well, this has nothing to do with Kierkegaard, but the four stages of learning.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You were staring down the void.
You were staring into the void.
I was staring into that void.
My eardrum, the waxy void of my fucking head. Hey, speaking of which, we got a little surprise for you, Gordo. We're actually going to bring you into the room now, and
I don't trust you.
No. Come on into the room. We're going to bring you into the room.
We're just going to give you hugs.
Yeah, we're just going to give you hugs. No, we're going to... I want people to see this, especially since this is like the first live stream video episode. Like, I want people to see what the process of creating the molds looks like. Because that was the most fun. Just take a seat in that seat.
I have to turn on this mic.
Oh, you got to turn on that mic real quick.
Professional about this.
Okay, so let's talk about the process while he's doing that. Mm-hmm. So the way this works is you create a foam mold of a person's a silicone mold, like silicone foam of someone's ear, and then you take that mold, that waxy fucking mold, and you put it in a box and you ship it off to
whatever lab,
Westone or whatever lab it is, that then makes they like put it into a CAD machine, right?
Some do. Most everyone for musician plugs will do a poured mold, hand poured mold. They're
really?
They're very proud of that. And then
I kind of thought that it would be like 3D,
like a
3D printed.
So hearing aids, So we do the same thing for a hearing aid. So when you send out a hearing aid, there's a lot of 3D printing elements to it. For sure.
Right, but some places pride themselves
on... so with molds, I think a hand poured one, I think it's just it just gives it a better quality control.
Right.
So there are some hand poured labs that do it.
Is Westone a hand poured lab?
Westone for sure does most of it.
So I'm very proud to own a set of hand poured, handcrafted.
And it's cool to watch it too.
Artisanal.
Artisanal ear.
Speaking of artisanal, I'm going to be doing one that we patty it together, so it's very the artisanal silicone.
Well, let's get into it.
Okay.
Let's get into it. All right.
I didn't have my stuff in here, so I have to go out.
Okay, so he's going to go out and get it, and I'm going to talk to Gordo while you go out there and get it. Are you scared?
Are we going to do an experiment?
We are going to do an experiment. Are you nervous?
Nice.
It's really fun. I
love it. This is great.
This part of it's really fun. I've thought of it. So we're texting back and forth today, and I was like, out of nowhere, because I knew we were going to do the live stream today, I was like, oh, dude. I was like, how difficult would it be for you to bring your equipment and do a mold on Gordo? And he's like, dude, I've got my stuff in my car. We can do that for sure. I was like, okay.
Perfect.
So when I said surprise, like this was the surprise that I was talking about.
This is great.
Also, I want to see you get fitted for some of these things. I want to see you get fitted for some of these. Hey, real quick, because Wiggins isn't going to be able to be here for the whole episode, I want to say real quick, if you want to hear the entire episode of this podcast in its entirety, make sure you go to wherever you get your podcasts, whether it be Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, whatever. Subscribe to the MF Podcast, and you'll be able to get the episode in its entirety. But I think Wiggins has a hard out at 5 o'clock, so the live stream will only go until then, and then we'll keep the episode going after that. So if you want to hear the full audio version of this podcast, make sure you go and subscribe to that now. Real quick, I want to give a shout out to our patrons, the people who back us up via a small monthly contribution on patreon.com/MFRuckus. Our patrons receive access to early and exclusive content. They basically get all the news that the band gets when we get it. And all the gossip.
Sometimes before the rest of the band gets it.
Sometimes before the rest of the band gets it. They get free passes to shows, VIP parties with beer and food, really anything that we can think of to give away to the patrons, all in exchange for a small monthly contribution. And it really goes a long way. Our patrons help this podcast happen. Our patrons help Tony fly back and forth to do shows. Our patrons help us to put out the motion comic series, which, by the way, the label got a hold of me today. We have an official release date of The Front Lines of Good Times, Chapter 2, motion comic, and the first single, and the single off of that motion comic. It's going to be dropping November 14th, so keep an eye out for that. Our patrons already got that shit like 2 months ago. So if you want to get stuff before anybody else, go to patreon.com/MFRuckus and become a patron at any level. Also want to give a quick shout out to Evergroove Studio in Evergreen, Colorado. The finest studio on the planet Earth by far. Friendliest staff, most competent, confident, in fact, unconsciously competent people, I would say. They know what they're doing without knowing that they know what they're doing.
Rad Brad.
Rad Brad. Go see them about your next project. RocketSpace Rehearsal Studios, where we used to run into Gianni every Monday when Voidbringer was rehearsing, but then we stopped rehearsing and you guys stopped being a band, so we don't see you anymore. But dude, I've been seeing the videos that Frank has been putting out, and they're fucking awesome, dude.
Yeah, so Frank's doing something called Bet and Envy, and then also, can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
So he's doing it's like a kind of a through mail thing, kind of like you, Tony, you're doing, where he's working with the guy.
Oh, correspondence, long distance.
Kind of
that's really cool.
thing. He's still playing. I think the original drummer has a band out in Maine too. So
cool.
everyone's still playing music for the most part, from what I know.
All right. Well, keep an eye out for that. Frank, if you're watching, shout out to you, my man. Let's see. What else? Oh, I forgot our most venerable sponsor, Matula Plumbing. Matula! This Plains, Illinois shit rolls downhill. Don't be at the bottom. Your number 2 is our number 1 priority. Your shit is our bread and butter. Angie's List winner of the Super Service Award back in 2011. 1-1 is the only one. He'll wear the booties for you. If you're in the Chicago area and you need your shit piped out,
technical term.
If you need your pipes cleaned, shit rolls downhill, don't bite your fingernails. Call up my man Jerry Matula. Dude, I really want to get those J Party Lord Jerry Matula shirts made, like ASAP. Oh,
it's a good idea.
And Jay, if you're watching, I'm serious. I really want to see. He introduced me to a new term. You introduced me to the term optics. J Party Lord introduced me to the term identity package.
Oh.
He was like, I want to get together with Max Sherman and create a whole new identity package for you guys, because
both of those guys,
they're phenomenal.
Fuck, dude.
But I asked Jay, because he's a fan of the show, to do a new logo for the podcast.
Oh, dude.
He's like, I want to get together with Max and do a whole new identity package. Dude. I was like, I just want to change the name of the band to Identity Package.
That's exactly what I was about to say. Identity Package is the perfect name for a band.
Yeah, dude. Jay's I met him working at Lost Lake, and then I saw his progression.
He's incredible, man.
Fucking knockout. Max did Voidbringer.
He did our logo. That's right.
He did our logo in a shirt, and that was fucking rad.
Yeah. He also did. He did the Front Lines of Good Times shirt with the necromancer and the robot and the dinosaur all chasing the van. Like he was like, so what do you want me to do for a shirt? I was like, the van driving into the distance, being chased by a giant necromancer, dinosaur, and robot. Do it. And he exceeded my expectations. Really good stuff.
That's great.
What sponsors am I forgetting? Oh, we are recording this at the Nug Nation Studios in beautiful Denver, Colorado. Go to thenugnation.com to check out all the badass videos we do. Potty Talk with Bon Burgundy, where I do the voice of Bon Burgundy, interviewing the likes of Redman, Afro Man. I took Gianni on a tour of the studios. Pretty badass,
Dude,
right?
It was like, I'm fucking excited to like watch some of these videos now. It's fucking craft, dude.
We're doing some badass stuff here, man.
Super cool.
I'm super excited about it. Also want to give a shout out to YOLO Rum, who is one of our new sponsors on the show. My dude Wiggins from YOLO Rum is going to be helping us with the live stream. Man, is there like a tagline or something that you want me dropping? Why is the rum gone? Why is the rum gone? YOLO Rum.
Who drank the last of the rum?
Yeah. You only get liquored up once. YOLO Rum. Check it out. Actually, we did have Karen Kuda getting so all the rum that is missing from that bottle went into Karen Kuda's belly.
Nice.
Yeah.
Bam.
So that all went to make her day brighter. So shout out to Karen Kuda. Who else am I forgetting sponsor-wise? I mentioned the patrons. I mentioned...
Mutiny.
Oh, Mutiny Information Cafe. This, of course, is a Mutiny transmission. Mutiny Information Cafe is a cultural mecca in the heart of Denver, Colorado. Records, books, comics.
Dude, the sound there, Jim, I'm going to play there, dude.
Dude, they're dialing it in. Vinny Fasano, I think, is doing their sound there now.
Dude, I saw the Denver All Day Fest there. And
How was it?
Dude, there was a lot of bands that played at Mutiny, and I was like, I hadn't been to a Mutiny show in forever, since they used to play them, like, up front.
Right.
Remember they used to play like right next to the windows?
Oh yeah, which in a lot of ways was better, because you were walking down the street and some fucking 18-year-old hardcore band is just in there fucking smashing it up.
But they keep that side door open now too.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and so I can't. Dude, they were playing JMP like 1960 something. Fucking heads. That place was so unbelievably loud. The cops came, you know. And,
yeah.
But then now when I went and saw Denver All Day Fest and went in there, dude, I was like, just the way the books and all that shit kind of like dampen stuff, like especially with like kind of hardcore music and heavy music.
Right. Dude,
plus sneaking around in the fucking cat, like you're just like,
it's fun, dude.
Band? And it's fucking.
It's so fun.
There's
no
cool
other
venue.
Yeah.
There's no other environment like it. I actually made. All I did the whole time we played there for the Top Secret 420 show was make jokes about the books and the acoustics, man. I was like, it's all that knowledge dampening up the sound, man.
Every time I play there, like if I do a solo show there, I'll just grab a couple books off the shelves and just like
start reading.
I'll just read a little blurb from them, or I'll tell a story associated with one of the books.
Well, we love Mutiny Information Cafe. Go check them out. Tell them the boys sent you. Flipside Music on South Tacoma Street. Yeah. All the stuff you want, none of the stuff you don't. Only rad shit. And a hell of a nice guy behind the counter. Ike knows his stuff. All the best pedals, all the best amps, like guitars, like a surprising collection of rare and interesting guitars. I've seen some really cool stuff come in there.
I need to go down there. I know Nathan works there, right? And then,
yeah.
The other guy's doing Nick is doing some of the work down there.
Oh, is he from the Keep? Nick Sullivan?
No, what's his name? Nick Hintz, maybe.
I don't know.
He's doing like their some of the like either amp work or like the luthier work, I think.
They're doing some they opened up like a shop in the back, so they're doing repairs and stuff now too.
Yeah, they expanded things down there.
That's right, because Andrew moved out of the space and opened his own building to do Blackout Screen Printing. Shout out to Blackout Screen Printing.
Yeah.
And now Ike is doing all sorts of stuff back there. Go see Ike. Tell him we sent you. We're actually going to have him on the show here soon. I'm really excited for that. I want to make sure you're here because I'm sure he's going to say all sorts of stuff about gear. And I'm the singy guy, so I don't know any of that shit. So, did I get all the sponsors?
You did, I think. Yeah,
I got all the sponsors.
You nailed them all.
Okay. I normally we stop and we take a break and we come in and do the sponsors, but for the sake of the live stream and eating up the time, I wanted to make sure I got it out of the way. So let's talk about what we're about to do here.
Okay. So this is what is just called doing an ear mold impression. It's very safe. I know that we kind of probably scared you a little bit. We're talking about this when I was learning how to do this. Since then, I've done like a fucking million more of them.
Yeah, that was one. That was the. I mentioned there were two things going on that I thought were really cool. The second thing is since I've come in to see you, I've seen how much your practice has grown.
Yeah.
Like so many bands have been posting.
I chase them. They come to me. It's kind of both ways. Where I'm like,
it's getting around, man.
You know, I'm like, I'll hit up people and be like, hey, dude, like, what's up? You need some music plugs?
Do you just go up to them at shows and talk really quietly?
Yeah.
And then go, but act like you're talking really loud. Like you make your face go like really big and demonstrative, but you're going like, hey, man, it's really nice to see you. And they go, what? And you go, dude, your ears are fucked up.
Right. So I feel like sometimes.
Here's my card.
Exactly. I feel like some people are probably.
popcorn?
People are running away from me because they don't want me to talk to them about that shit. Or like, you know, they're like coming into me and being like, dude, I need to come in. Hey, what's up? You know, and that's just how it works.
So you've been doing a ton of them. So what we're going to do now is after the hearing test, you do this process of like creating the mold itself.
This is for like, I mean, it depends on the type of hearing loss. You can typically, some people will have the need for a mold because they'll have a very powerful hearing aid. But for preventative stuff, just for this kind of stuff, the fun stuff, to make sure that we don't have any hearing loss, we do an ear mold impression and we send it to a lab, just like Aaron said. So the process is pretty simple. What we do first is called otoscopy, and you'll see me do it in a second. I'm
do I
going
need
to look.
To take these
yeah,
off?
take your headphones off.
Or do you have a drill that will go through?
A drill? Yeah, we're going to drill through the headphones first.
So I'm going to have to go untethered as well. But so the first thing we do is called otoscopy. It means we just look in your ear.
So for those of you who are just listening to the audio version, Gianni is sticking a tiny little flashlight in Gordo's ear, and Gordo's eyes are getting really wide.
So we just make sure that there's no wax or anything that's...
How much? What's the gray hair count? What's the thread count looking like?
It's going to be good, dude. It's like a nice little hair in here.
Clean as a whistle.
Clean as a whistle. No wax. So no wax. So that's really good. So we can do that. So the next thing we do is that we put this...
Okay, so we've got this like little like foam,
like a little foam gun.
this little like foam tampon thing.
Yeah. So we do is we put
is going to go in his ear.
And this goes in the ear to protect what's called the tympanic membrane. If you want to be fancy.
Have you move there and then?
Okay.
Okay, we'll have him go.
Oh, there you go. There you go. There you go.
Got to get the cinematography.
So it just keeps the eardrums
perfect here. All right.
So when we're putting this stuff in there, we'll make sure this is locked because just on the odd chance that someone does open a door. What we do is we put this little foam piece in here, and we put it real deep in the ear because the deeper we can get it sealed in there,
the better seal it's going to make in the long run. Okay. So now he's going in with this like tiny little flashlight that looks like an itty bitty lightsaber. Like it looks like something you would see at a Parliament Funkadelic show when they like were playing Flashlight. Flashlight!
That is
and we just
cool.
double check where the block is at so that there's no holes or no way for the material that I'm going to put in there to go past.
Right.
And we make sure that it's far enough in, and that probably is pretty good. I might go a touch.
Well, because you want the mole to be such that
long.
it'll.
The longer it is, the better. Fidelity is that word I was using before, where it's kind of like the better clarity.
It's kind of funny to see what your mold looks like at the end. Like when you get your plugs back, it's like, why does my
ear look like that? Wow.
Why does my ear look like a duck dick? Like why is it all corkscrewy and weird? It's fascinating. Okay, so now Gordo has the tiny foam tampon in his ear, protecting his tympanic membrane.
What?
Right? Huh?
What'd you say?
Huh?
So just for the sake of
Do
time,
what, honey?
Just for the sake of time, we'll just do your left ear, and then if we want to do the other one, we can do it kind of after we're out of the
Right.
time crunch. So with these,
We're not in a time crunch. This is our show.
Cool. All right.
It's my show.
This is our show.
So what we do now is to put the silicone in. This is a 2-part silicone.
Oh, fuck. John Fate is here. Hold on. Hey, Wiggins, can you check the front door and see if John Fate is there? Crap. Are you outside?
So what we do.
All right. It's like bubble yum.
Yeah, so we mix this together. In my hands. That's what it took me so long to come back in because I was washing my hands, just so you know.
Gotcha.
This is all like a whole day's worth.
Thank God.
Just pounding in all the germs in here to go right in your ear. And then we put it inside of this guy. Actually, I'll probably hit that a couple more times. Put this little ball in there, and it gets us some material.
Okay. So he's like packing this like Pepto-Bismol looking stuff into this little like, dude, it looks like a turkey baster.
That's great.
Like it looks like.
See, this is,
dude, can you take a mold of my butt?
Kind of the same thing that they do to your. Whoa, that's crazy. That feels weird.
Can you take a mold of my butt? Like if I wanted to make a custom butt plug?
Yep, sure could.
It's the same kind of.
John, do you want to come into the room?
Feeling that they like when you get your.
Hey, buddy.
Your teeth.
All right,
like
cool.
Your teeth done.
John Fate is in the studio right now.
But it sounds.
Our tour manager extraordinaire, John Fate, is up in the booth.
So then I always make it into a little ball so we can check when it hardens.
So I'm sorry, I got distracted. Can you make a custom butt plug with that foam?
I mean,
like if I sent it up to the butt plug factory, could they?
Well, you have the opposite. Well, yeah, I don't know how that would
I wonder what a custom butt plug would look like.
Probably terrible.
Different for everyone.
As opposed to just those normal, those beautiful artisanal butt plugs that.
Well, remember when there was like that Instagram trend for like one Valentine's Day?
Oh, the butt chocolates?
Yeah, everyone was making their asshole chocolates and giving it to their fucking.
See, I think that's made up. I got the butt chocolates from someone once, and I don't think that they were. I think that they just.
There wasn't enough.
You don't
geographical marks that were.
You don't send an imprint of your butthole to a place that makes a custom chocolate of your asshole.
That shit's funny though.
I mean, it's a funny idea, but I think so much of it is just like like
that. That's like cool.
I think they just send you chocolates that look like buttholes.
Exactly.
Because I did get the butthole chocolate once, and I saw the individual's butthole before.
So
okay, so now Gordo's getting the tiny foam tampon with the light shoved in his other ear. Dude, that thing does totally look like a little tiny toy lightsaber. Like it, flashlight. All right, like you get those swords at the circus.
Yeah.
So do you know the story about the lighters at concerts?
Oh yeah.
Do you know that story? Like where
sure.
it came from?
I don't know what it came from, but
So-
I've definitely been to a show where that's been going on.
So Parliament started that.
Oh, with the song Flashlight.
So what used to happen is Parliament did Flashlight, and people would bring flashlights to the show.
That is a great.
But then people are walking in with these flashlights that are full of like C and D batteries,
Oh shit.
and it's dangerous, right? So they had to come up with. So one thing that Parliament started doing is they started selling those collapsible flashlight swords.
That's awesome.
Like as a piece of merch, like you would have at the circus. And then eventually they were unable to do those too. So people started doing the lighter during flashlight because they'd have a lighter in their pocket.
That's crazy.
And supposedly George Clinton claims, now this is George Clinton,
Right.
acid taking, crack smoking, waving his dick on top of a fucking cocktail table, like bare ass naked, like lighting his room on fire with a crack pipe. George Clinton, he claims that Parliament created the lighter thing. Now, whether or not that's true, it was in that Mike Judge show, the Tales from the Tour Bus. They talked about that.
That's pretty fucking crazy.
So, okay, so now we're getting Gordo's other ear is getting the treatment, is getting blasted. And this is like that triple rise insulation foam. Dude, it looks so funny. It looks like you've got gum stuck in your ear.
You can go into the camera and kind of show
Okay,
people what it looks
so
like.
now you got to remember to tell him to do what I did, which is you got to move your jaw around. You got to wiggle it around because, especially if you're a singer, and this is something Gianni told me, is if you're a singer, you need to like move it around so that the mold will move with.
Oh, yeah, I can feel it. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that when they make the official mold, it'll be something that has a little give room in your ear canal.
We have like you were doing vocals like on, you were doing like all this shit.
Oh yeah.
We have guitar players like, and it's cool because if I go to a rehearsal, I'm like, hey, just play guitar, just grab your guitar and play your guitar, or like if you're a drummer, play drums for a couple minutes.
Just to see like so that.
Just because some people go when they play, and some people have the open mouth, whatever it is, you just kind of have more.
And you don't want it to hurt when you make the natural faces that you make when you're playing. That's such an interesting part of the process.
So there's a few different ways. Some people say to not do that. Some people say to do it. And the thing is with the silicone mold, Once they go to the lab and they come back, we try them out for a while, and if they work well, then they keep them. But we can also modify them. That's part of our job, just as any kind of person who works with ear molds, is to modify them or to have them remade.
Well, get in front of the mic here real quick, Gordo.
Can he hear you?
Can you hear me?
This is what hearing
barely. Can you hear me? Yeah, you can use it. All right. So how does it feel?
It feels like I'm very well filled in.
Yeah, so this one I can take out.
Gordo's talking like a guy on the bus who's like talking to you but doesn't take his his headphones off. Or that scene in Saving Private Ryan where the guy had a grenade blow his ear out. And he's like, yeah, Private Ryan, he came through here last week. What?
Saving Ryan's privates.
So what do you think, Gordo? Oh, wow, look at that.
Whoa, that's awesome.
Look at that.
We want it long.
Oh man, it looks like my son's penis.
And then we check your ear to make sure.
It looks like my son's tiny, bald, uncircumcised penis, but with a little with a little foam cylinder on the tip of it.
Yeah, it's like a.
Wow. It looks like my son's penis, like shooting out one like little megapixel of gray urine. That's what it looks like. I'm trying to give an accurate description for people who are only getting the audio version of the show.
This is why you have to watch the show. You have to subscribe to the YouTube channel.
Well, hey, we're coming up on 5 o'clock here.
Yeah,
so we're going to take a break. We're going to take a break, and we're going to let Wiggins get out of here because he's got a hard out at 5. And then we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come in, and we're going to do some more of the podcast. And maybe if we're lucky, we can get John Fate to come in and sit down with us a little bit. So we'll be right back. Thanks, those of you, for watching the live stream. We're hoping going forward in the future, we're going to be able to do more episodes like this. Got to talk to Wiggins about how we're going to make that work out logistically. Right on. And for those of you who listen to the audio version of the podcast, there's more episode to come. And you guys can help us make sure that we do full video episodes in the future by going to patreon.com/MFRuckus and becoming a patron. So this is going to be the end of the live stream, but we'll be right back with more of the regular podcast. So thanks, see you in a minute, and goodbye at the same time.